Costco has quietly adjusted its orders for 9 food items that millions of American families buy every week. What makes this interesting is that shoppers usually don't notice it right away. The shelves may still look full, but there are fewer choices. Package sizes have changed, sale prices have disappeared, or a familiar product no longer comes back the way it used to. This isn't a rumor. These signals are showing up in food price data, USDA reports, U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics data, company reports, and the real pressures affecting today's supply chains. When Costco cuts back on orders for an item, that decision usually started months earlier. Today, we're going to look at the 9 food items facing the greatest pressure, from the least concerning to the most significant. 9. Canned tropical fruit, pineapple, mandarin oranges, fruit cocktail. Don't look at whether the canned fruit aisle at Costco is still full. Look at how many choices are left. Is pineapple still available in all the usual varieties? How many brands of mandarin oranges are still there? Is the fruit cocktail your family always buys still available? That's the signal worth paying attention to. Canned tropical fruit is often one of the first product categories to reflect supply chain pressure, not because it suddenly disappears from store shelves, but because the number of choices starts shrinking very quietly. The shelves still look full, but one flavor at a time, one brand at a time, and one sale at a time, the options slowly disappear. Most shoppers don't notice until months later. The data shows this trend has already begun. Most canned pineapple sold in the United States is processed in Thailand and the Philippines, while mandarin oranges depend heavily on supplies from China, Spain, and Peru. When tropical storms, extreme weather, or lower harvest yields hit, processors have to compete for raw fruit. Higher fruit prices drive up the cost of processing, sugar, syrup, metal cans, transportation, and labor. Each cost may rise only a little, but together they're enough to make a noticeable difference in the final price. The reports confirm the same pattern. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Producer Price Index shows that processed fruit continues to face pressure from rising input costs. The USDA expects U.S. citrus production to keep declining because of weather and disease, making processors even more dependent on imported fruit. Meanwhile, Dole says procurement costs for pineapple and other tropical fruits remain high, while Reuters reports that ocean shipping, metal packaging, and import tariffs continue to put upward pressure on retail prices. That pressure has already shown up at the checkout. Between 2022 and 2024, canned fruit prices increased by roughly 15% to 25%, depending on the product. Today, a 20-ounce can of pineapple typically sells for about $1.85 to $2.60. A standard can of fruit cocktail usually ranges from $1.80 to $2.80, while mandarin oranges are commonly priced between $1.90 and $2.40. Many market analysts expect prices to rise another 2% to 5% between now and the end of 2026 if packaging, labor, and transportation costs don't come down. What's interesting is that Costco usually doesn't respond by raising prices right away. Instead, it relies on long-term purchasing contracts and its Kirkland Signature private label to keep prices stable for as long as possible. The trade-off is that Costco may reduce the number of SKUs, keep only the best-selling varieties, or switch to larger package sizes to lower the cost per unit. So the shelves may still look full, but the number of choices gradually gets smaller over time. Current prices are still relatively reasonable compared to what's being projected. If your family regularly buys canned fruit, this is an item worth considering when it goes on sale. With a shelf life of 2 to 3 years, it keeps well as long as it's stored in a cool, dry place, and the cans aren't dented or rusted. It's also worth buying a variety of flavors instead of stocking up on just one. In retail, the price tag is usually the last thing to change. The first thing to disappear is often the selection on the shelf. 8. Frozen vegetables. Don't count how many bags of vegetables are in Costco's freezer section. Count how many different kinds of vegetables are still there. Today, you may still see dozens of bags of broccoli, peas, and sweet corn. But take a closer look at how many stir-fry blends, organic mixes, or pre-cut vegetables your family usually buys are still available. In the frozen food aisle, the number of bags is rarely the first signal. What changes first is the number of varieties. That's how many retailers respond when costs begin to rise. They don't leave big empty spaces on the shelves. Instead, they cut slower-selling SKUs and keep the products that move the fastest. As a result, the freezer section still looks almost the same. But if you come back a few months later and count the different kinds of vegetables, you may notice that the selection has narrowed significantly. The problem starts in the growing regions themselves. California remains the largest vegetable-producing state in the United States, while Florida plays a major role for many seasonal vegetables. When drought, prolonged heat, or unexpected freezes reduce harvests, fewer vegetables make their way to freezing plants. Then come higher electricity costs for freezing systems, cold storage, transportation fuel, and logistics. For retailers, keeping dozens of different SKUs fully stocked becomes less efficient, especially for lower volume products. Recent reports reflect that pressure. The USDA continues to forecast elevated fruit and vegetable prices throughout 2026 as production costs and weather continue to affect supplies. NOAA has also reported that major agricultural regions across the United States continue to face drought in the West and unusual cold snaps in Florida, increasing risks to crop production. Meanwhile, data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that transportation, energy, and cold storage costs remain significantly higher than they were before the pandemic, continuing to put pressure on the entire frozen food supply chain. Retail prices already reflect that trend. Many popular frozen vegetables used to cost around $1.50 to $2 per bag. Today, most sell for about $2.50 to $4, while organic varieties and premium vegetable blends typically range from $4 to $6. If energy and logistics costs don't come down significantly, many forecasts suggest prices could rise another 10% to 20% by the end of 2026. Costco usually doesn't raise prices across the entire freezer section right away. Instead, it prioritizes staple items with steady demand, such as broccoli, corn, and peas, while vegetable blends, organic products, and slower-selling SKUs may appear less frequently. So the first thing to disappear usually isn't the food itself. It's the specific type of food your family has always bought. If your family regularly uses frozen vegetables, they're still worth considering when they're on sale. Most products maintain good quality for about 12 to 18 months when kept at a consistent freezer temperature. Avoid thawing and refreezing them repeatedly, since that reduces quality. Another common mistake is repeatedly opening a large bag to take out small amounts at a time. Dividing it into smaller portions as soon as you bring it home helps preserve quality and reduces waste. When it comes to frozen vegetables, what you should watch isn't whether the freezer is still full. It's whether, a few months from now, your family can still buy the same vegetables you've always used. 7. Breakfast cereal. If you pick up a box of cereal at Costco today, and it looks almost identical to what it did a few years ago. Don't assume nothing has changed. For many products, the first thing to change isn't the price or the brand on the shelf. It's the amount of cereal inside the box. The box stays almost the same, but the weight goes down. That's shrinkflation, one of the earliest signs that production costs are rising. As ingredients, packaging, and transportation become more expensive, many manufacturers first reduce the weight to keep the familiar price. If that still isn't enough to offset costs, the next step is usually cutting lower selling or lower profit SKUs. That's why many familiar flavors or package sizes disappear before consumers realize anything has changed. Recent financial reports show the same trend. General Mills says cereal sales in North America have declined, and the company continues streamlining its product lineup to focus on its best-selling cereals. Kellogg has adopted a similar strategy to reduce manufacturing costs and inventory. Meanwhile, the USDA continues to report pressure from rising ingredient costs, while data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that cereal and bakery product prices remain significantly higher than they were before 2022. Retail prices reflect that change. In 2022, many popular cereal boxes sold for around $3 to $4. By 2026, the typical price has climbed to $5 to $7, while premium varieties and family-size boxes often cost more than $8. Consumers aren't just paying more. In many cases, they're also getting less cereal than they used to. Costco usually doesn't respond by raising prices across the entire category. Instead, it prioritizes keeping the best-selling family-size cereal boxes on the shelves, while specialty flavors or seasonal additions may appear less often. That helps maintain competitive prices, but it also means the overall selection gradually becomes simpler. If ingredient and transportation costs remain elevated through the end of 2026, many analysts believe this trend toward streamlining product lineups will continue. Manufacturers will most likely focus on their best-selling cereals instead of maintaining a large number of slower-selling options. If your family regularly eats cereal, don't just look at the price. Take a few seconds to check the weight printed on the box. Unopened cereal usually maintains good quality for about 8 to 12 months. Once opened, it should be transferred to an airtight container to keep out moisture and stay crunchy longer. Sometimes the first thing to change isn't how much money you pay, it's how much food you actually bring home. 6. Extra virgin olive oil. If you've bought extra virgin olive oil at Costco recently, you may have noticed a small change. Kirkland's Signature is almost always available, but some imported brands are showing up less often, and sales have become less frequent. That's usually the first sign that supply is under pressure, even if retail prices haven't changed very much yet. The problem begins in the Mediterranean. Spain, Italy, and Portugal account for most of the world's extra virgin olive oil production. 2 consecutive years of drought sharply reduced harvests, pushing olive oil prices to record highs. Although the most recent harvest has improved in some regions, global supplies still haven't fully recovered. At the same time, the costs of glass bottles, labor, transportation, and logistics remain elevated. The reports reflect the same trend. According to the International Olive Council, IOC, global olive oil supplies are recovering but remain below the levels seen before the severe crop failures. The USDA says inventories have not yet returned to normal, while Reuters reports that extreme weather and transportation costs continue to be the 2 biggest reasons prices are not falling quickly. Retail prices have changed noticeably. In 2022, a large bottle of extra virgin olive oil typically sold for about $10 to $12. By 2026, Many products in the same size range are selling for $16 to $22, while premium imported brands often cost even more. Many experts believe that if transportation costs and weather conditions don't improve significantly, prices will most likely remain elevated through the final months of 2026. Costco usually doesn't try to expand the number of brands it carries when the market becomes volatile. Instead, it prioritizes the most reliable supply sources through long-term purchasing contracts, especially for Kirkland Signature. That helps keep prices competitive, but it also means some imported brands and slower-selling products may appear less frequently than they used to. If your family regularly uses olive oil, it's still an item worth considering when it goes on sale. An unopened bottle typically maintains good quality for about 18 to 24 months if it's stored in a dark bottle, kept in a cool, dry place, and protected from heat. The important thing to remember isn't how much prices have gone up. It's that olive oil always responds very slowly to harvest cycles. When supplies decline, prices usually rise fairly quickly. But when harvests recover, it often takes many months, sometimes even longer, before shoppers see that reflected on supermarket price tags. 5. Dark chocolate and cocoa. The next time you visit Costco, spend a few seconds looking at the chocolate aisle before you look at the price tags. Are the large boxes still as fully stocked as they used to be? Are imported brands still showing up as often? If the number of choices starts shrinking, there's a good chance the reason isn't Costco. It started months earlier in the cocoa fields of West Africa. More than 70% of the world's cocoa beans come from Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. Over the past few years, extreme weather, cocoa tree diseases, and years of limited investment have repeatedly reduced harvests. According to the International Cocoa Organization, ICCO, the global cocoa market has gone through multiple consecutive supply deficits, totaling nearly 500,000 metric tons, pushing inventories down to their lowest levels in years. Brazil is increasing production to help offset the shortage, but it still isn't enough to balance global supply. The pressure doesn't come from cocoa beans alone. As raw material prices rise, manufacturers also face higher costs for sugar, processing, packaging, and transportation. Reuters reported that cocoa prices climbed above $12,000 per metric ton, the highest level ever recorded, before easing. But that doesn't mean chocolate prices will fall right away. Most manufacturers buy cocoa through long-term contracts, so retail prices usually respond much more slowly, often taking months. That trend is already showing up on store shelves. Just a few years ago, many dark chocolate bars and containers of cocoa powder were still relatively affordable. By 2026, many products have increased by roughly 20% to 40% compared to the period before 2022, while premium imported products have risen even more. The USDA also says ingredient and processing costs remain elevated, leading many companies to continue adjusting their product lineups instead of lowering prices. Market research firms expect chocolate prices to remain flat or rise slightly through the end of 2026, rather than quickly returning to previous levels. Costco usually doesn't expand the number of brands it carries during periods of market volatility. Instead, it prioritizes products with the most reliable supply and the strongest sales. As a result, the chocolate aisle may still look well-stocked, but imported brands and specialty flavors may appear less frequently, and major sales have become less common than they used to be. If your family regularly uses dark chocolate or cocoa powder for baking or making drinks, it's still an item worth considering when it goes on sale. Most unopened products maintain good quality for about 18 to 24 months if they're stored in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight. When it comes to cocoa, the important thing to remember isn't today's price on the shelf. It's that the market always responds much more slowly than what's happening in the growing regions. When supply has been falling short through multiple harvests in a row, prices usually take years, not just a few months, to return to previous levels. 4. Canned tuna and salmon. If you pick up a can of tuna or salmon at Costco today, most people assume they're paying mainly for the fish inside. But that's starting to change. For many canned foods, the cost of the can itself, transportation, and packaging is rising almost as fast as, sometimes even faster than, the cost of the food inside. Before a can of fish ever reaches a supermarket shelf, it goes through far more steps than most people realize. The fish is caught or farm-raised, transported to a processing plant, sealed in steel or aluminum cans, sterilized, stored in warehouses, and then shipped by truck or cargo vessel before reaching distribution centers. If just one part of that chain becomes more expensive, the final retail price changes as well. According to NOAA, harvest levels for some commercial seafood species continue to be affected by changing climate conditions, ocean conditions, and fisheries management regulations. Meanwhile, the USDA says food processing and packaging costs remain significantly higher than they were before 2022. Reuters also reports that food-grade steel and aluminum prices, along with ocean shipping costs, have risen sharply multiple times in recent years, making packaging one of the fastest-growing expenses in the canned food industry. That pressure is showing up directly in retail prices. Today, a standard can of tuna typically costs about $1.50 to $3.00, while canned salmon usually ranges from $4 to $7, depending on the brand and package size. Many experts believe that if metal costs, logistics expenses, and fishing costs don't decline significantly, canned seafood prices could rise another 3% to 6% between now and the end of 2026. Even if seafood supplies become more stable, Costco usually doesn't respond by bringing in more low-cost brands. Instead, it prioritizes suppliers that can provide reliable inventory and consistent quality through long-term contracts. That helps limit price volatility, but it also means imported brands and slower-selling products may appear less frequently when market costs rise. If your family regularly keeps canned tuna or salmon on hand, they remain one of the most valuable sources of protein with a long shelf life. Most unopened products maintain good quality for about 3 to 5 years if they're stored in a cool, dry place and the cans aren't dented or rusted. When it comes to canned food, sometimes the biggest factor behind the price isn't just the food inside. It's that the can delivering that food to consumers has become an increasingly expensive part of the meal itself. 3. Whole bean coffee. The next time you visit Costco, look at the whole bean coffee aisle before you look at the price tags. Are all the brands you usually buy still there? Are there still as many dark roasts, medium roasts, and specialty coffees as there were a few years ago? If you start seeing fewer choices, it may not be Costco's decision. The story usually begins months earlier in the coffee-growing regions of Brazil. Brazil is the world's largest coffee producer and the most important supplier of Arabica coffee for the U.S. market. Over the past few years, prolonged drought, unexpected frost, and extreme weather have repeatedly affected production. When Arabica harvests decline, coffee bean prices on the global market rise quickly. Then come higher costs for roasting, packaging, transportation, and labor, putting even more pressure on the price of every bag of coffee. What's important to remember is that even when weather conditions improve, coffee trees still need years to fully recover, so supply rarely rebounds within a single harvest season. The data reflects the same trend. According to the International Coffee Organization, ICO, Arabica coffee prices have risen sharply during multiple periods as global supplies declined while demand remained strong. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has also reported that retail coffee prices in the United States are significantly higher than they were before 2022. Meanwhile, the USDA says production in several major exporting countries continues to be affected by weather and climate variability, preventing the market from returning to normal conditions. Retail prices have changed dramatically. In 2020, many popular bags of whole bean coffee still sold for about $5 to $6 per pound. By 2026, many products have climbed to around $12 to $18 per pound, while premium Arabica coffees often sell for considerably more. Many experts believe that if Brazil continues to face extreme weather or Arabica production recovers more slowly than expected, coffee prices are unlikely to decline significantly during the final months of 2026. Costco usually doesn't respond by raising prices across the entire coffee aisle. Instead, it prioritizes its best-selling SKUs, especially Kirkland signature products and coffees with the most reliable supply. Specialty coffees, limited editions, and imported brands with lower sales may appear less frequently when the market becomes more volatile. For Costco, reducing slower-selling SKUs is often easier than raising prices across the entire category. If your family drinks coffee every day, it's still an item worth considering when it goes on sale. Unopened whole bean coffee maintains good quality for about 12 months. If it's vacuum sealed and stored in the freezer, it can last up to 24 months while still preserving its flavor. The key is to avoid opening the bag repeatedly and to keep the coffee away from air, light, and moisture. When it comes to coffee, the first thing to change isn't the price tag. It's the supply of Arabica beans. And by the time shoppers begin noticing fewer choices on Costco's shelves, the global coffee market has usually been sending that signal for months. 2. Avocados. The next time you visit Costco, don't just look at the price of the avocado bags. Look at how many choices are left on the shelf and whether the package sizes are still the same as before. Many people think avocados simply get more expensive depending on the season. But that's not what's really changing. Avocados aren't disappearing. What's changing is the way Americans buy this fruit as prices continue to stay high. About 90% of the Hass avocados consumed in the United States come from Mexico. That means any changes in weather, harvest conditions, inspections, or trade policies there can quickly affect retail prices. Avocados are also highly sensitive to temperature, so the entire journey from the farm to the supermarket has to stay within a strict cold chain. If fuel costs, cold storage expenses, or transportation costs increase, the final retail price changes as well. According to the USDA, avocado demand in the United States remains strong, while supplies continue to fluctuate from one harvest season to another. The Hass Avocado Board also says production and import volumes often vary with Mexico's harvest schedule, meaning supplies are not always consistent throughout the year. When supplies tighten during seasonal transitions, prices usually rise faster than production can recover. That trend is already showing up in the marketplace. Just a few years ago, many families could easily buy a bag of avocados at a fairly stable price. Today, avocado prices fluctuate much more from season to season, especially when supplies from Mexico decline or logistics costs increase. Many experts believe that if weather remains unpredictable, refrigerated transportation costs don't come down, and tariff policies continue putting pressure on imports, avocado prices will most likely remain elevated through the final months of 2026 instead of returning to previous levels. What's interesting is that Costco usually doesn't try to keep every package size in stock when the market becomes volatile. Instead, It prioritizes the best-selling SKUs with the most reliable supply in order to maintain competitive prices. As a result, shoppers may still find avocados on the shelves, but certain package sizes or promotional offers may appear less often than they used to. For Costco, streamlining the selection is often more effective than constantly adjusting retail prices. If your family regularly uses avocados for salads, sandwiches, or smoothies, it's worth considering buying them when prices are reasonable during harvest season. Ripe avocados can be mashed with a little lemon juice and divided into smaller portions before freezing. This helps reduce oxidation and preserve their color. When properly stored in the freezer, avocados can maintain good quality for about 4 to 6 months. The important thing to remember is that avocados rarely disappear from Costco. The first things to change are the price and the way consumers shop for them. When a fresh food depends on supplies from outside the United States and requires an entire refrigerated logistics chain to reach store shelves, even a small disruption at the beginning of that chain can make a very big difference in your grocery cart months later. 1. Ground beef. If there's one item that's hardest for Costco to replace, it's ground beef. Many people assume prices are rising because retailers want to make more profit. But when it comes to beef, the biggest problem isn't Costco. The problem begins with a nationwide supply that's shrinking, and the recovery could take years, not months. The next time you visit Costco, take a look at the ground beef section. It may still look fully stocked, but pay attention to how many choices are left in lean-to-fat ratios, package sizes, and brands. When supply comes under long-term pressure, retailers usually prioritize keeping the fastest-selling products before consumers even notice the change. According to the USDA Cattle Inventory Report, the U.S. beef cattle herd has fallen to its lowest level in decades after years of drought, rising ranching costs, and many operations being forced to reduce herd sizes. Higher feed costs, labor expenses, and interest rates have made it much harder for ranchers to expand their herds. More importantly, the cattle industry cannot recover quickly. From the time a heifer is kept for breeding until a market-ready animal is produced, usually takes about 2 to 3 years. That means even if weather conditions improve, beef supplies cannot increase overnight. The data reflects the same trend. The USDA Economic Research Service, ERS, says U.S. beef production continues to face pressure because of the smaller cattle herd. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has also reported that retail beef prices are significantly higher than they were before 2022. This is one of the few products where prices are driven not only by inflation, but also by the biological cycle of the cattle industry. Retail prices have changed dramatically. In 2022, regular ground beef typically sold for about $4.50 to $6.00 per pound, depending on the region and lean percentage. By 2026, many areas have reported prices of $7 to $9 per pound, while premium beef products cost even more. If the cattle herd continues to recover slowly and feed costs remain high, many experts believe beef prices are unlikely to decline significantly during the final months of 2026. Costco usually doesn't respond by raising prices across the entire meat department right away. Instead, it adjusts order volumes, manages inventory, and prioritizes the fastest-selling SKUs. Certain package sizes or less common lean-to-fat ratios may appear less frequently as supplies tighten. For Costco, maintaining the right balance between competitive prices and a steady supply is more important than keeping every option available. If your family regularly uses ground beef, it's worth buying when you find a reasonable price, and dividing it into meal-sized portions before freezing. When vacuum-sealed and properly stored, ground beef can maintain good quality for about 4 to 6 months in the freezer. The important thing to remember is that beef isn't like many other foods. Once supplies begin to shrink, the market takes years to recover. That's why the first thing to change isn't an empty meat case. It's higher prices and fewer choices on the shelf. After looking at these 9 items today, perhaps the most important thing isn't the beef, the coffee, or the chocolate. The most important thing is that they're all telling the same story. What shows up on store shelves today is often the result of decisions, harvests, and disruptions that happened months or even years earlier in places shoppers never see. A drought in Brazil, a poor harvest in West Africa, a shrinking cattle herd in the United States, or a shipping route disrupted on the other side of the world. Each event may seem far removed from everyday life, but in the end, they all meet in the same place: your grocery cart. Costco didn't create these changes. Costco is simply where they become visible. And the price tag you see today is often the final chapter of a story that began a long time ago. What about you? Out of the 9 items we covered today, which one have you noticed has gone up in price, has fewer choices, or has become harder to find at the Costco near you? Share your experience in the comments. There's a good chance your story is also one small piece of the bigger picture that millions of American families are living through together.